Hi everybody, I'm Tom Mendola and I'm here with the legendary drummer and recording artist Raymond Pounds. Raymond, thanks for doing this with me.
You're welcome.
And I've been an admirer of your work for many, many years. Ever since I first heard you play on that Stevie Wonder album, Songs in the Key of Life. And I've been wanting to do this with you for a long time because I know you have a wealth of information and stories to share with all the drummers out there. Some of whom may not know you, being that they're a couple of generations behind us. But I think this will be a great interview for everybody.
Good.
Yeah, so I wanted to get a little background on you. You've played, before I go there, you've played with some of the greatest recording artists and artists that have ever lived. Stevie Wonder, Bob Dylan, what was the other guy?
Michael Jackson.
Michael Jackson. I mean, the list goes on, you know. I was just looking at one of Michael's videos the other day, and that must have been such a thrill to record with all these great guys.
It really was.
Yeah, really. And so I want to get into your story and how you developed your talent and the influences that you've had and basically your journey. So, but where did you grow up?
I grew up in Los Angeles. I'm from Michigan, just outside of Detroit, but I came to California when I was 8 years old. So I'm a California boy.
Did you start playing before you were 8?
No, I didn't start playing drums until I was 13 years old. 13 years old is when I started playing.
Wow, okay. So did you come from a musical family?
My mother played piano and sang church songs.
Well, that's not uncommon. A lot of people have that background.
Yeah, nobody really played instruments in my family, but my brother, he played jazz all the time. He had a whole bunch of very good jazz records, and from the time that I was 6 years old, I'm used to listening to jazz and all kinds of music, actually. Yeah.
So, when did you start listening to music? When did you start hearing the rhythms in the music? At what age?
When I was 8 years old, my brother had a record. It was a compilation. And it had Cannonball Adderley, it had a Dinah Washington. But what I remember about that MRC label, it was blue. And it had a song on there by Cannonball Adderley called "The Song Is You." And I have it in my library today. But that's what I started liking.
So, when you were a child listening to this music, when did you become aware that there was rhythm going on, that you were actually hearing what was being played rather than just having music in the background?
When I was a 5th grader, I visited some relatives in Texas, and an older cousin was an Ahmad Jamal fan. And he played Poinciana, the live version and I heard Vernell Fournier, and I fell in love. I said, "Oh wow!" And we spent 2 weeks in Texas, and my cousin had maybe 10 or 12 Ahmad Jamal albums. So when I came back to Los Angeles, I was 8 years old. I went and I saved my little pennies and I bought that album.
Wow. Great. So that was when it started for you.
That's when it started.
So what was your first instrument?
I tried to play the piano because we always had a piano in the house. So I tried to play Boogie Woogie on the piano. And that's what I started.
How did that lead to drums?
My brother had a friend that played guitar, and so my brother took a Fender bass, and they were going to try to start a group, and they had a drummer come over to the house where they rehearsed. It was a guy named Junebug. Junebug had a drum set, and I was watching as they would come over and they would rehearse about three times a week. And I watched Junebug, and he played boom, pa, boom, boom, pop, boom, boom, pop, boom, boom. And I said, oh, let me try that. That's the first beat that I learned on drums. Boom, pop, boom, boom, pop, boom, boom, pop, boom, 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 boom. And I just kept watching. After about 2 months, I was as good as Junebug. And so after that, my brother had a friend around the corner who was an upright bass player named Richard Taylor. And I used to go to different neighbors' house and listen to their record collection. Richard Taylor had the largest record collection. And I went to his house almost every day, listening to whatever he had. Eric Dolphy, Miles Davis, anything. John Coltrane, and I listened and listened. And when Richard saw me trying to play drums, and he started taking me to jam sessions with him.
Oh, wow.
When I was 13 years old, he would take me to a jam session that he would attend at somebody's house. And at the end of the jam session, they would let me play. And I would emulate and copy whatever the drummer was doing. And I had a natural ability. I had a natural feel for drumming.
Right.
And I copied whatever I see a guy do, I could do it. You know? Not to say I could, emulate everyone, but the guys that I was watching play, their level of expertise wasn't that great. So I was able to basically pick up what they did. The bass player, Richard Taylor, he would take me to jam session every week. And after about 2 months of that, he discovered that I couldn't read music. He put a chart in front of me and said, do you know what this is? And I didn't know a quarter note from a half note. I didn't know a quarter rest. I didn't even know what a rest was. So when he discovered that I was illiterate, I couldn't read music, but I had natural talent, he said, you need to learn how to read. He took me to Clarence Johnston and asked Clarence Johnston to give me lessons. He said, listen, this kid, he's talented, but he can't read. He doesn't have any parents, and he doesn't have any money. Will you give him lessons? Clarence Johnston gave me lessons.
So Clarence was your first teacher.
He was my first teacher.
What did he teach you besides music?
He started me from the beginning. First thing he did was he taught me how to hold my sticks.
A traditional grip?
The traditional grip.
Right.
He taught me from the beginning, since he realized that I didn't know anything. So this is like, he's got a kid who, at that point, I'd only been playing about 6 months. I'd only been playing drums about 6 months. So I wasn't too far along, I wasn't too into it where I couldn't learn. Because if you play by ear, and you play by ear for a long time, it's very difficult to slow down and go back and learn how to read. So if you're going to play, it's best to learn how to read.
You mean from the very beginning?
From the beginning.
Yeah.
So I would go home and practice. That's all I did was practice what he would show me.
And how long did you practice a day?
About 3 hours every day, which is unusual. Most kids that play an instrument, they only want to practice a half an hour,
Sometimes if that.
If that. But I was very into it, and I practiced. I practiced all the time.
Now, you had an early affinity for jazz. Were you also listening to popular music?
Yes. I liked all music. I used to watch Lloyd Thaxton's TV show in Los Angeles, and Lloyd Thaxton's television show exposed you to all kind of music. He would have a guest on his show, which would be Brazil 88, I'm sorry, Brazil 66, Sergio Mendes. Next week, he'd have Ferranti and Teicher playing the piano. He would have some jazz guy, playing a saxophone. So I was exposed to all kind of music, and I liked it.
Mm.
So
did you find it easy to learn how to read music at first, or was it very difficult for you?
no, because the teacher, Clarence, was so good. He taught you step by step, one thing at a time. First his first lessons were with quarter notes, actually. It would be quarter note lessons. Mm-hmm. Quarter notes with the left hand. Quarter notes on the next line of the little book that he had for me. And the right hand. Then left and then right. And he taught me that. And he also, the first book he would introduce you was William F. Ludwig's Drum Instructor.
I remember that.
That book taught you your basics. Mm-hmm. Taught you all the notes, the rest, all the musical terminology was in this book.
So that helped you become a sight reader later on for the studio.
Right. And because of my, because I practiced a lot, anytime I went to a lesson once a week, when Clarence sent me home with a lesson, man, I practiced all week. When I came back to him, I'm moving at a pace that is much faster than any of his students because they only practice a half an hour a day.
He must have loved it.
He loved it because I went home. If he said practice this a half hour, I'm going to do an hour and a half on it. So going a weekly lesson with Clarence, by the time, 3 or 4 months have passed by, it's like his eyes are bucking out of his head because I am advancing and progressing at a pace that he had never seen in a student.
So when did you start working professionally? At what age? Like your first gigs?
16.
Tell me about them. What were they like?
Local guys would see me play, and they would want me to play on a gig with them.
Right.
Sometimes it didn't work because the clubs had an age limit.
Right.
So we would go to the club to have a sound check and practice, and the club owner would say, the band can stay, but this guy here,
he's got to go.
Yeah, he's got to go. But yeah, when I was 16, I started professionally.
So were you this tall when you were 16, or were you much smaller?
What do you mean?
Well, your size. I mean, did you get
skinny
busted?
Little kid?
Yeah. Okay.
Skinny.
So you weren't as tall as you are now.
No.
Okay. Yeah.
No.
All right. So as I understand it from our conversations before, you started to break into better gigs around 17, 18, around that age.
Yes.
And who were some of the people that helped you along?
Well, the big gig I got was with the Don Ellis Orchestra.
Yeah. How did that happen?
Don Ellis. Well. Part of the story that I left out, when in the 60s, there was a music school called Grant's Music Center. And it was on Venice Boulevard near Arlington. Grant's Music Center gave lessons on all the instruments. It also had a rehearsal hall. And this was for basically black musicians. So all the best black musicians in Los Angeles came to Grant's Music Center. If John Handy came to town, that's where he rehearsed. If Frank Foster, the great saxophone player, if he came to Los Angeles, he rehearsed at Grant's Music Center. On Saturday afternoon, Grant's Music Center had a big band. With all the professional guys in town. A guy named Roger Spots had the big band. So most of the professionals in Los Angeles came to Grant's Music Center. I took my lesson on Saturdays at Grant's Music Center.
From the same teacher?
From Clarence.
Okay, good.
So, and they also had a youth band at Grant's Music Center. It was a 17-piece big band. And after I had, after a year and a half with Clarence, I'm ready to play with the big band.
Nice.
So I'm starting to learn how to read charts. And so guys would come through and they would see me. And they go, whoa.
So you were like 16 at this time?
15 years
16?
old. 15
That's
years
great,
old.
yeah.
15 years old, I was a terror.
You're on steroids.
and Grant's youth band used to play in Los Angeles at different spots. We would play at Marty's on the Hill. That was a famous nightclub. When Miles Davis comes to town, he plays at Marty's on the Hill. He plays at the Parisian Room. He plays at Shelley's Manhole.
Right.
Yeah, Shelley Mann, the great drummer, had a club. So Grant's Music Center had all the best black musicians. And whenever people wanted a black musician, they'd come to Grant's and they would ask Henry Grant, the owner, you know, I'm looking for a drummer, I'm looking for this. That's how I got in Don Ellis's band.
Now you said something which kind of rung to me. What people would come to look for a black musician rather than just a great musician?
Craig Huntley was a piano player who was a white piano player, and he was 14, so he was wow, it was wow. You see a young kid that's 13 years old playing jazz, then that's really remarkable. Everybody wants that. So Craig Huntley wanted a black bass player and he wanted a black drummer, to join his band. So whoever needed black musicians, that's where they came.
That was an interesting time too, because that was around the time of the Civil Rights Act.
Yeah.
Or right before it.
Mm-hmm.
Because that didn't come through, I think, until like 66,
67.
Yeah,
So,
right.
yeah.
And then the Voting Rights Act. So interesting. So that must have been a great melting pot of wonderful musicians there.
Definitely was. All the best guys would come to Grant's Music Center. When Elvin Jones came to town, he visited Grant's Music Center. When Roy Haynes came, everybody came to Grant's Music Center.
So how did Don Ellis pick you up?
He called Henry Grant at Grant's Music Center and says, I need a black drummer. You got any guys that you could recommend? Henry Grant really liked me. So he sent me
Beautiful.
to Don Ellis. And see, I could read. By the time I'm 15 years old, I can really read. Because Don Ellis he was famous for having odd time signatures.
Right.
5/8, 7/4, 3.5/8, 15/8, 11/8, 9/8.
So what was that like when you first saw those charts?
I really had no fear because I could read. I had done my lessons with Clarence. I was still taking weekly lessons from Clarence and advancing. But by the time I'm 15 years old, man, I could really read. I could sit with a big band or with a band. They put the chart in front of me. I look over the chart, and I play.
Well, I know you were a great reader. Now, how did you develop your groove and your time? Because it's one thing to be a great reader, but some guys can read really well, but they don't make the drum set articulate, even though they're great readers.
What I did was listen to a lot of records. You listen to the jazz station, 105, was the big jazz station in Los Angeles. So you listen to that. But you go to everybody's house who has a record collection, and you spend hours listening to records. You listen over and over.
Granted, I got that, but did you ever work with a metronome and work with, because I know how good you are with a click track to be in the studio.
You know, I did not work with a metronome because back in the day, metronomes were like a wind-up clock.
Yeah, and they varied.
And not so much that they varied. You can't hear the bad boy. You can't hear it when it's going tick tock, tick tock. Well, you start playing and you drown it out. But by practicing the way Clarence had me practice, repetition. Mm-hmm. So that made you have control. That made you have good time, steady time. Mm-hmm. Because if you're practicing a single stroke roll or you're practicing swing rhythm, ting, 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 well, you don't come into your drum set and practice for 5 or 10 minutes. You got to do it a whole half an hour without stopping. You play ting, 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 ting.
Yeah, like you're doing a show or something.
Yeah, right. And you don't stop. Well, at first, your arms get kind of tired after a while.
Yeah.
So you don't stop. You just slow the tempo down. And when your muscle soreness goes away, you pick the tempo back up. So by practicing a long time and gaining control of your instrument, that allows you to keep good time.
So I get this concept of how much you drill the reading, but I know from personal conversations with you and from, playing, different gigs and talking about guys who rushed and who dragged. How did you develop that really excellent sense of being able to feel when somebody's slightly ahead or dragging a little bit? And because I know you know it, you're very sensitive to that. I don't know if that just came from practicing reading. How did you become aware of that?
Well, I used the jazz station 105 in Los Angeles. My brother had a nice radio with good speakers. And I would set my drums up and turn that radio up loud when one of my favorite songs will come on. Mm-hmm. And I turn it up and I play along. The Jazz Crusaders.
Oh, so you were playing against great musicians to begin with?
Yeah, I turn the radio up and I play along with the song and try to copy. And after listening so many times to the famous songs, you kind of know the song. You get to memorize it, and you try to copy off of Stix Hooper or Art Blakey or Elvin Jones or whoever it was, Tony Williams, Philly Joe Jones, Max Roach.
I know you said Philly was one of your favorites.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's harder to do. I mean, we actually had to develop our ear more than guys do now, because unless you went to see a guy play, you had to try to decipher it from the recording. And they didn't have videos back then on YouTube where you could go back and watch and break down the sticking. So I know the difficulty in that. And so from playing with all these records, when you went and you transferred that over to, like, when you played live, you could feel if you were playing the same song with someone, if they were picking up time or if they weren't grooving properly. Is that how it worked out?
And when you play with the older guys, they tell you.
Ah.
The older guys tell you, hey, Pound, don't rush. They would tell me if I'm speeding up or if I'm dragging. Because, see, sometimes when you get a little tired, you start slowing down. So the older guys would tell you. And as far as different grooves, if I heard something that I tried to emulate, when I go to my weekly lesson, I would show Clarence what it was that I was trying to do. And he would see, oh, that's what you're trying to do. I'll show you, this is what you're trying to do. This is the way it goes.
I got it.
Because I would listen to Elvin or I'd listen to whoever, Ringo or whoever it was, and I would go to show my drum teacher my new thing that I found. And he would tell me, this is the way it goes. Because most of the time, I didn't quite have it right.
He'd keep you humble.
He'd keep me humble, and he would show me what it is I'm trying to do.
Gotcha.
You know.
So you're in Don Ellis's band, right? So from there, how did that springboard you to like getting into the recording industry and playing? You know, because you started early in the studio.
The first record, I was getting known around town. I'm playing live gigs, and saxophone player named Rudolph Johnson asked me to play on his album. That's the first album I played on, was Rudolph Johnson's album, right. Spring Rain, on the Black Jazz label. At that time, if you had one of the famous new jazz records out, you heard yourself on the radio every day, and they would tell you, they would say everybody's name who was on the record. So, you know, and they would have like each radio station, you know, there was a show from 9 to noon. There's a show from noon to 3. There's a show from 3 to 6. There's a show from 6 to 9 p.m. And that album with Rudolph Johnson was very popular. And every day they would say my name on the radio.
Great.
And I was excited, and everybody in town knew about me being on this record, and they heard my name being announced every day.
Now, didn't you tell me that you met with Earl Palmer, or he helped you too?
Earl Palmer, he let me come and watch.
Right, that's right, yeah.
You know, Earl Palmer let me come to his sessions and watch. Stand behind him and watch. Paul Humphrey was a great drummer who played on all the Jackson 5 records, and he played with Lawrence Welk's orchestra on Lawrence Welk's show. He let me come to the studio and watch. And see, I used to, when I see one of these guys, I go and ask, I beg, can you show me? Can I come over and practice with you? Can I come to your session and watch how you do it? Can I see, you know? And I kind of thought I could handle it, so I would say, can you recommend me for a session that you can't make? And they go, huh? They'd ask me, well, you need to come to the session with me and watch and see how it's done. And then maybe.
That must have been a great experience.
Yeah, I said I watched Earl Palmer. I watched Ralph Humphrey, Paul Humphrey. I'm sorry, and that's what I would do.
So how did you get going? Like, you know, how did you break those barriers to get into that scene and eventually record with Stevie Wonder?
After Stevie really was my first big gig.
How old were you?
I can't count. 1974.
Okay.
That's when I got in.
It's about 23.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
how did you get that gig?
You know, they say, sometimes they say it's not what you know, but who you know. Well, I changed it up a little bit. It's not only what you know, but it's also who you know. So it's who you know and what you know. Because knowing someone, you have to be ready when the opportunity is there. So I was playing with the J.J. Wiggins Trio. J.J. was a 10-year-old boy who could play the upright like Ray Brown.
Wow.
And he had a trio. And this comes from Grant's Music Center. So I played with the J.J. Wiggins Trio. And a 10-year-old bass player, that was a sensation. So we got to open for people. We get to open for the Crusaders at Shelley's Manhole. When Young Hope trio couldn't get along, and so they fell out right in the middle of their engagement at the lighthouse. J.J. Wiggins Trio finished out that engagement. So we used to open for the Crusaders. They kind of took us under their wing. And so Hugh Masekela was friends with the Crusaders. So when Stevie Wonder said he was looking for a new drummer, he asked Hugh Masekela, "Hey man, I'm looking for a new drummer. You know anybody?" Hugh Masekela asked Stix Hooper of the Crusaders, "Do you know a young drummer? Stevie's looking for a young drummer." Stix Hooper hooked me up with that. And so I went over and auditioned.
Now, you told me a funny story when you went up to his house and rang the bell to come in. What happened?
Well, first of all, when he called me on the telephone, I was in shock. Stevie Wonder's on the telephone calling me, and he's playing the piano. He's playing the Fender Rhodes while he's talking to me. And he said he was looking for a new drummer. Would I come up and audition? Because he heard I was good. I went to his house. He lived up in the Hollywood Hills. I didn't know I didn't know my way there. So I met Reggie McBride, his bass player, at a hotel that they lived in on Sunset Boulevard up near Highland. So I met Reggie McBride there, and then Reggie drove me up to Stevie's house. When we got to his house, to the gate, this blind guy comes out, pulls keys out of his pocket, unlocks the lock, and opened the gate for us to drive in. And so I said, "He's not blind." I said, "He's not blind, is he?" Yeah, but he was blind. And so we went in, and he had a family room in his home up there. So he had a drum set there, he had his keyboard there and everything. So my audition was going to be to play with him and Reggie McBride. And I was into Stevie Wonder's drumming, because that
Innovisions?
No, the one talking book.
Right.
You Are the Sunshine. Yeah. And I was into his drumming because he was a great drummer, and he played on these records. So I knew his records, and I knew his drum licks. So when we got set up, I went to the drums to play. He said, "Listen, if you don't play good, we're going to kick your ass." He said, "Yeah." I started laughing. He said, "Yeah, if you don't play good, we're going to kick your ass." I said, "No, I didn't come up here to mess around." I used a different word, but so
Keep it clean. Keep it clean.
so keep it clean. But we started playing, and I played his licks, and I knew his songs. He went crazy.
He said you're hired right then?
No, he wanted me to come over every day. Every day he would call me up and tell me to come on over and play some more. After 3 days, he asked me to join his band.
I got it. That's smart, actually.
Yeah. And so I didn't know. I didn't know how much money I was supposed to get.
You didn't ask?
No, I told him, I said, "Wow, that sounds good." But in my mind, I'm thinking, before I accept anything, other than, telling him I would love to join your band, I needed to go talk to some older musicians and ask them how much I should get.
Right.
So I was, at that point, I was on a gig, Nancy Wilson's TV show on NBC. And in the band was Snooky Young, Ernie Watts, Plaz Johnson, all the top guys in Los Angeles, and little young me. So I went to Ernie Watts, and I asked Ernie, I told Ernie, Stevie asked me to join his band. How much money am I supposed to get?
Good question.
And so he told me, Ernie told me, and that's how that went. But you know, after I got with Stevie, that was.
Well, you played on a couple #1 records. I mean, that must have been a thrill.
That was quite a thrill.
I mean, it was I Wish and Sir Duke, and then there was a Contusion.
Yeah.
You played on that record, correct?
Yeah, on side A of the double album.
Right. And I remember because when I love that album. That's like a landmark album. It's right up there with the Beatles and everybody else. You know?
That was the album of the year.
Right. And he probably won a Grammy for it too.
Yeah,
right?
won multiple Grammys.
So I remember when I first heard Sir Duke, I was like jumping out of my skin. This is great. And then when I got into Contusion, I was like, oh wow, he's doing fusion.
Right.
You know, because I know he's friends with Chick Corea, and
right.
You know, at that time Chick had his fusion band, Return to Forever. So it was kind of like, oh wow, man, this is really cool. And I remember practicing to that record to you.
Yeah.
Going, oh, this is great, you know. But those were great recordings. I Wish as well. I mean, that's a great tune. And he was on one side, and you were on another side on that one.
Yeah, 2 drum tracks there.
Wow.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That was something. So did he like say you got to play it this way, or you got to play it that way?
That's right.
He did.
He is very particular.
Yeah.
Sometimes, first he would let you go, and if you were playing what he would like, then he wouldn't say anything. But if you weren't playing what he thought should be played, he would kind of hum the beat to you. And if that didn't get it done, he'd come over to the drums and tell you to get up, and he would sit down and show you.
Mm. Now, you didn't mind that, right?
No, I didn't mind at all. Sometimes, sometimes he would have you come in and record, and you would record a song or track, they call them, and then the next day, he has replaced me and done the song over.
Redid the track, yeah.
Yeah, stole my licks and put it on the record. Stole my licks and put it on the record. Well, but, you know, fair exchange is no robbery, because I learned a lot from him. I took some of his beats and some of his, you know, some
concepts.
The way he, yeah, I learned a lot from him. But yeah, he used to do that sometimes. He would have you, he would let you play a song, and he wouldn't say anything. He would say, "Oh yeah, I like that. Do that again," or "Yeah, play that." Next day, he's done it over.
Mm. Well,
yeah. But I mean, I didn't mind, and it was a battle to get on to play drums on his album or his records, because he played the drums on everything.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, he did some really cool stuff on his recordings. So
before I played on Songs in the Key of Life,
I don't think any other drummer was playing with him for a while.
There's no other drummer on his record. Once he began producing his own records, and he played drums on everything. The only guy that played on something was a guy named Greg Brown. He played on Superstition. Other than that, all the drums are Stevie Wonder.
Did he play on Ads?
He played on Ads.
That's right. Yeah.
Greg Brown.
So you're hearing yourself now on a #1 hit on the record. That's a huge smash. What did that feel like for you?
Very exciting.
Yeah. So did that springboard you into more work?
Well,
was that the catalyst that got you really going in the studio?
Well, while I was working with him, I was doing recording sessions with a lot of people. The people wanted Stevie Wonder's drummer on their record.
They wanted that mojo.
They
wanted that groove.
People wanted to find out who Stevie Wonder's band and wanted to use them.
It was a great band.
You know, so Sergio Mendes, he wanted me to play on his records, and he would ask me, show me that rhythm from Stevie on Bird of Beauty. How does he do that? Yeah. So that's what that was. Quincy Jones.
He hit you up to play with Michael, right?
Yeah.
And some other people.
Yeah.
Right. And then I guess through family connections you got in touch with Bob Dylan, right? He asked you to play.
Bob Dylan. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you've done maybe I don't know how many recordings. We tried to put them together. I think we came up with about 150. Just off the cuff, and there's stuff that's out of print too. Right?
That on the internet there's All Music. That website All Music has listed all the records that I've been on,
right?
As well as everybody else too.
Wow, it's a lot.
Yeah,
it's a lot.
But I was doing a lot of albums. I was playing with Blue Mitchell. I was playing with. A lot of different artists at that time.
Yeah, it's a who's who, actually, of people in the recording
James
industry.
Brown.
That's right, Slaughter's Revenge, right?
Yeah.
Now that he has a history of great drummers behind him too.
Yeah, well, his drummers, they are great. They were Fred Wesley, his trombone player and his musical director, was in Los Angeles. They were getting ready to do the soundtrack album for Slaughter's Big Ripoff, a movie starring Jim Brown. Fred Wesley went around Los Angeles to hear different musicians playing. And he came to hear me play at a club, and a couple of days later, he asked, after he heard me play, I took a break, he asked me my name, he asked me for my phone number, I gave him my number. 2 days later, he calls me up and books me for a session.
What was it like working with James? Especially because I know he's very precise with the drums.
Well, James Brown didn't know musical terms, and when I was when I came to a recording session, I'm the youngest guy on there. There's David T. Walker on guitar. There's Arthur Adams on guitar. There's Joe Sample. There's playing piano. There's Chuck Rainey playing bass. All these guys are 10 years older than me. I'm 21 or something. These guys are 31, 32. And
well, wait a minute. Was this after Stevie? You were recording with James?
No, that's before I got with Stevie.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I thought it was the other way around.
I was doing recordings around town.
Okay.
Yeah, I started.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I did those a bunch of albums before I got with Stevie Wonder.
Got it. Yeah.
But James Brown's situation was Fred Wesley they wrote charts out, and so it was a big group, a big band actually doing the soundtrack album, and he needed musicians that could read, and Jabo and James' drummers, they are so great.
Clyde Stubblefield,
yeah, but can't read.
Ah, see, that coin was a good coin to have in your pocket.
They can't read. They need to rehearse.
Yeah.
And when you're doing recording sessions in the 60s and in the 70s and the 80s, we're not going to have rehearsal. We show up for a recording session. You don't know what kind of music it's going to be. You don't know what it is. You've never heard it, but they put the music in front of you and they expect you to play it the first time and sound like you've been playing it all week. So I played on albums from some of the groups that had a band, but the drummers in the band didn't read. So that's how I got on the session. So Jabo, he's standing behind me on the James Brown album. On the session, Jabo was there, and he's standing in the back of me. And I can tell he kind of he don't really like the fact. He wasn't happy about it. Yeah. No, he wasn't happy about it. This little young guy. Who is this little guy?
It's a guy who could read
with peach fuzz. Who is this little guy? And so, first time for the first song. Was Slaughter's Big Ripoff. It was the Slaughter's theme. That's the first song. So they passed out the music, counted off, we start playing. We playing. Then they want us to just play on, just work on the groove. So we playing. You know, it's a 1-chord song actually. So we could just play the groove, and we're trying to get it, and I'm trying to play what I think is the James Brown beat. And it's really not working. And James came in there and stood right in front of my drum set. And on a session, you don't want to be singled out as being the one that doesn't have your part right.
Yeah.
James Brown walks out in front of me, and he doesn't know how to, he has no terminology.
He can't articulate it.
He can't articulate. So he's standing in front of me going, "Give me that thing. Give me that thing." And I'm getting nervous. I'm sweating. I'm trying to dig in. I'm trying to get the groove. And James said, "Give me that thing." He's gyrating his body. He's going, "Give me that thing. Come on. Give me that thing." He said, "Stop." Band stop. I'm sweating. I'm nervous. Jabbo's standing behind me. And James said, "Jabbo, sit down and show him that thing." Jabbo sat down and started playing that thing, that groove. I saw, "Oh, okay." And he got up, and then I sat down and played that groove. Because Jabbo, what he was playing was something that you don't hear on the record.
Was he playing ghost notes?
Yes.
Yeah, a lot of ghost notes. Right?
He's playing ghost notes with his bass drum.
Oh.
So it's, you know, the tempo's boom, pop, boom, pop, boom. And what you hear, pop, pop, ba-da, pop, 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 ba-da, pop. That's what you think is happening. Mm-hmm. Boom, pop, pop, ba-da, pop, boom, pop, pop. That's what you think is being played. Jabbo is playing eighth notes. Ghost, he's playing boom, pop, boom. He's playing boom, 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 boom.
So he's got that undercurrent going, yeah.
Boom, boom,
right.
Boom, 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 boom. And you don't hear that on the record. You just feel it.
Right.
So I didn't know. And when he sat down and did it, then I said, "Oh, that's what it is.
That's the thing.
That's the thing." You know. So, but you know, so we did that album. We did that album. I think about 5. I played on about 6 songs on that soundtrack album. I played on about 6 songs. Ndugu was one of the drummers that Fred Wesley had seen going around L.A. So Ndugu is on a couple of the songs on there. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I'm on about 6 songs on there. I'm on Slaughter's theme and another one called what is it? Get Up and Drive Your Funky Soul. So that song was used in Spider-Man 2.
That's right.
Yeah. So
that's great.
Yeah.
So you were at really the last stage of the golden age of the studio musicians in LA. Actually across the whole country, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and then things started to change, I guess, around the late 80s, early 90s with technology when drum machines started coming in. And how did that transition affect you, I mean, career-wise?
It took a lot of money out of your pocket because nobody used a drummer. When they started using those drum machines, that's the end of your recording sessions. Instead of having recording sessions every week, you know, with the minimum being 1 session, none. It went to 0 because people making records made records with drum machines. It was Roger Lynn's drum machine came
Lynn
out.
drum, yeah.
Yeah, the Lynn drum came, and that was it. everybody was using drum machines on their records. And a keyboard player ran the drum machine. They don't need a drummer, so.
Well, that was the first instrument actually to start losing time in the studio. Hal Blaine said it went from, 100% of the time to that he was playing in the studio only 10% of the time. That 90% of his work went away.
Yeah.
When that happened. And I remember too, like even on just some live gigs, people started bringing in drum machines. And they started cutting the number of people down in bands. But you, I remember, during that period started transitioning more to going out with recording artists, like, if I recall.
Well, yeah.
Barry White, right?
Yeah, as a drummer or a musician, you're trying to find some work so that you can get some income. So, because during the recording era, when they used drummers or musicians to record every week, didn't need to go on the road. Mm-hmm. As a matter of fact, when people would offer road gigs, if it wasn't paying us as much as I was going to make recording in town, I turned it down. A Seals and Cross, I turned it down. George Benson's gig, I turned it down. The Jacksons, I turned it down. Let me see.
How many we turned down?
People want me to go on the road. It's like, huh? How much you gonna pay? No. I have to share a room with another guy? No.
Right.
So, when the recording era was happening, you didn't really go on the road. Mm-hmm. But when the drum machine and automation arrived,
sequences, yeah.
Yeah, so you have to work somewhere. So you have to go on the road to get some money, because playing in nightclubs and restaurants, that's about, the pay scale never changed. $100 a night.
You're still making $100 a night.
It's still $100. It didn't change. It's been the same for 50 years.
That's true.
So if you want to play at Spaghettini, or you want to play at the Catalina's, Catalina up there?
Yeah.
Oh man, $125, $100. If you're lucky enough to be with somebody that's famous, you could play at Catalina's and get more money. You if you're Billy Cobham or you're
Steve Gadd or
Steve Gadd, something like that, and you're packing the house and they're paying $40 to come to see you play,
plus food.
Then other than that, if you're just playing around Los Angeles or New York, and you're playing at a jazz club or you're playing at a restaurant, Spaghettini, like I said, all these places. What's that guy? Dave Coz has a Dave Coz room at Spaghettini Herb Alpert owns Vibrato. You go to Vibrato, you get $125, and you gotta wait 3 weeks to get it.
Yeah, from the contractors.
I'm not downing. I'm not talking down on that.
But it's true. It's true. It's true.
That's
the
what
wage
happened.
scale.
That's what happened. Yeah. Things change. There's no recording sessions. There are still a few recording sessions, but very few.
It's not enough to keep the mortgage intact and everything else.
No, you have to find something else. You have to play live. You have to play live gigs. Hopefully, if you could do what we call casuals, you play weddings, or you play at the country club.
That's right.
Then the pay scale is different.
Well, LA is a very tough town to make money in now because a lot of people play for free to be, for exposure. So it depresses the wage scale. But from friends of mine that live in Florida and up north in Washington or Portland, they have a more of a live scene where they can actually work, 4 to 6 nights a week, but they have to travel around to do it. You know, and by the time, you know, you deduct your expenses and whatnot, I mean, you may bring in 500, 600, 700 a week, depending. Like in Phoenix, some of the guys I talk to there, they make more money, and in Boston they make more money, but they don't work as much sometimes.
Things change. Things have changed.
You got to survive. So you also taught, I know, and you had some very good students, but you were involved in a community center teaching, weren't you?
No, I was teaching at Grant's Music Center where I took where I learned, and I had lessons. I had Clarence Johnston gave me lessons at Grant's Music Center for about 7 years. I studied with Clarence. When he, after 7 years, he said, "Look,
I got nothing left to teach you."
Cause you know, nothing I can teach you. After 5 years at Grant's Music Center, I started teaching there. So
wasn't Clayton Cameron one of your students?
Clayton Cameron, I taught him. I'm his first drum teacher.
Wow. He speaks fondly of you, by the way.
Yeah, I taught him how to hold his sticks, taught him how to read, taught him his rudiments, taught him, you know, taught him everything but except his brush work. I showed him the basic brush work, but Clayton Cameron took brushes to another level that I can't touch. Clayton Cameron, he's the best brush guy. He does things I can dream of doing.
Yeah, he's a great player.
You know, when he showed me his brush work, I loved it. But at that point, I'm too lazy to practice. I don't want to practice and put in on all those hours to learn another instrument or another technique. So, you know.
Well, you know, everybody has their thing, you know.
I used to practice a long time. I practiced.
You're a good brush player.
Yeah.
You're a good brush player.
I learned enough brushes to play the job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lay it down.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, how long did you teach there for?
I taught at Grant's Music Center about 5 years.
Mm-hmm. So, do you think drummers now are playing better than they have in the past? Is this a better time for drummers because of the advent of YouTube and whatnot?
The drummers of today are so incredible. They're scary. These guys, are they on steroids? How do they play as fast as they play? These guys play so fast and so strong. They are incredible. Today's drummers, and there's so many. I'm kind of glad that I was in the era that I was, because right now there are so many fabulous drummers. The market is flooded.
Well, let me ask you this, and this is my observation. Maybe this will ring true for you. It used to be, before we had these tools like we have today, the internet and the availability to post all these videos and whatnot. Like I said earlier, you had to go and watch a guy, or you had to figure it out by listening, right? And a lot of the times, a certain technique, like let's say the molar technique, or whatever technique you were being taught, you know, how to develop your fingers, how to develop your wrists, that was handed down from teacher to student, was handed down. You had to go study with the guy who could teach that specific technique. Nowadays, it's all over the internet. So
if you can't learn now, shame on you.
Mm-hmm.
Because you have access to everything. You can see every drummer in the world play. You can see him demonstrate his technique. Drummers of the past that you've never seen play, you can go right on YouTube and you can pull up and watch everybody play. Mm-hmm. All the techniques that are available to be learned are on the internet. Mm-hmm. You can go on and learn everything quickly. Back in the day, every 3 weeks somebody would come to town and you could see. Art Blakey come to town, he's going to be here 2 weeks. And you might not see him again for another 2 years. Elvin or Steve Gadd or whoever's coming, Tony Williams, you're not going to be able to watch him. And a lot of things that we learned in the old days, you have to listen to a record and try to guess how it's done, because you couldn't see it.
Yeah, and sometimes they give you fits, right?
Yeah, because you don't know how things are done.
It's like Ringo would give me
Yeah,
fits,
yeah.
and even though he plays simply, but his sticking was always crazy because I didn't know that he was left-handed
Right.
playing on a right-handed kid
Right.
doing everything backwards.
Right. Yeah. But it's yeah. Right now with the in today's world, much easier to learn.
So, what style of music, personally, do you enjoy playing the most? Because I've heard you play so many different styles.
Well, it's hard. Really, I enjoy jazz. I enjoy jazz. It with the most freedom. You can be spontaneous. You can experiment. But I love playing funk. I love playing R&B. I like playing everything, but I really enjoy jazz. That's what I started playing.
You know, yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, because of the freedom. R&B, you gotta have a backbeat on 2 and 4.
You got to make that hi-hat sing, too.
You gotta have.
Yeah.
Well, the hi-hat is where you have the freedom to add extra things, but you gotta hit the snare drum on 2 and 4. You get fired if you don't.
Well, that's what I see with a lot of the younger drummers. They have great chops, but sometimes they're not just laying it down.
Well,
You know, because if we would, like we had spoken before, if we would have played on some of those gigs the way some of the guys played, they would get fired.
they're not hired. That works for giving clinics.
Right.
You can. There are some great drummers that do clinics, and they play fantastic things that are very intricate, very busy. But you can't play like that when you're making music with other musicians. Mm-hmm. You'll be overplaying. You'll be playing too much, and you'll probably be too loud.
See, it's interesting because when Elvin was playing, when he was coming up, that's what he was accused of, right? But he started a whole style like that.
Yeah, but he doesn't play loud. Elvin seems like he's playing loud, but he's not.
You know,
he's powerful. Elvin Jones, I used to think that Elvin Jones played loud until I saw him. He's very intense, very strong, and it seems like he plays loud,
stuff.
but he doesn't play real loud. Mm-hmm. And if he did play loud, he wouldn't hear anybody. Because when you see him play, it was a piano, wasn't amplified. The bass player was not amplified, and John Coltrane was not amplified.
Unless they were at a concert hall, yeah.
Yeah, the drums are you notice there was no monitor.
Right.
So if you played too loud, then the only person you would hear would be yourself. Mm. In the old days when we first started playing, you have to adjust your volume to the situation. Your drums are the loudest instrument. It's louder than that upright bass. It's louder than that saxophone. It's louder than that piano. So you have to keep the volume down. And then a lot of times, if you notice on YouTube videos, bands, the instruments, the people are close to each other. Here's the drummer, the bass player's right next to him, so you can hear him. So it's different.
So what advice would you give to some of these young drummers now? I mean, being that the scene is so different now.
Well, practice, get as much skill as you can. Learn how to read music, learn how to play all forms of music, all types of music. Because if you grow up and you decide to be a drummer and you try to be a professional drummer and make money to feed yourself and your family, the more styles and situations that you can play in, that's more chances that you can work. Because if you don't read music, you might get by. You might be able to get on a big gig that never uses written music. They rehearse a lot, and you learn the show by ear. But if you're not on a big gig like that, what if they're having a job and you have to read music
like a show? Yeah.
Suppose you have to audition, and you don't get to hear the music. They just pass it out to you, and they count off the tempo and they expect you to play it. Well, if you don't read music, you never make that. You can't do that. Mm-hmm. But if they say there's an audition and they say get the CD and learn track 2, track 5, and track 8, and then you go to the audition, hey, you're gonna kill it. You and 1,000 other guys are gonna kill it. Then it comes down to who has the earring or who has the look we're looking for, The
hairstyle.
But yeah, so if you're thinking about being a drummer or a musician, you need to learn your craft. You need to learn how to read, and you need to learn how to play all styles. If you're a drummer, you need to learn how to play soft. You need to learn how to play loud.
Most people don't. I mean, I do because I've researched a lot of your recordings, but most people don't know that you're just like a great big band drummer. I mean, you can kick a big band like anybody. It's really, when I think that's when I hear you, regardless of all the other great recordings you've done, I enjoy listening to you the most in that kind of a jazz setting with the big band and also with a small group. So, but a lot of people I don't think realize that about you,
I used to go to New York.
You play crazy big band.
Yeah, that's what I enjoy doing. I love doing that. But, I mean, if you hear me play on a Shaka Khan record or Michael Jackson or Stevie Wonder or something like that, James Brown, you go, oh yeah, he's a funk drummer.
Right.
And so when I was with Stevie Wonder, when I went to, we would go to New York, and I called up a few guys musicians that I knew had moved to New York. They kind of shied away from me because they thought I was only a R&B drummer. They didn't want to bring me around the jazz scene. Uh-huh. They were kind of ashamed of me. They don't because they thought I didn't know how to play jazz.
But didn't you prove a few people wrong as you were coming up? They didn't think you could read and
Oh yeah, when I went to audition to get in Los Angeles City College, back when I was coming up, there was a myth that black musicians didn't read. So at LA City College, every semester, when they would have auditions for the big band, the A band and the B band, black guys didn't make it because they couldn't sight read music. So when I went to LACC and I auditioned to get in that class, they looked at me and they laughed and they thought that I couldn't read. And they I put the music in front of me and I chewed it up and spit it out. and then after the band teacher, he goes, "Wow, want to play another?" I said, "Sure," I never forget it. The song that they would stick on you at LACC, "My Heart Belongs to Daddy." That's the song that they would stick. But what they did, they had their arrangement from Latin to swing, and it had figures that you need to catch and all that. It had a tricky ending that you needed to catch, and people always get hung up when they try to, read the chart.
Yeah.
So, but no, by the time I got to, by the time I was 18, 19 years old, I'm a very fine reader.
Well, yeah, that's what I mean about the big band, because you went from that place that had the big band, you were in the junior big band, then you were with Don Ellis, and then, by the time you were that age, you were just ready.
Yeah.
You know, for that.
Yeah. Yeah, that reading and having a good teacher to teach you all style, I was blessed with that, you know.
So teachers are important then.
Teacher is
for younger
important.
drummers, yeah.
I could imagine if you learn how to play the drums or an instrument without a good teacher and you end up being a good player, you must be a genius. and there are some geniuses. There's some drummers that don't read and they got, I call them elephant ears, because they can hear something one time, like Buddy Rich,
yeah,
and then next time they got it.
Yeah, there are a few people that have that ability.
Yeah,
just a few that are better at hearing than seeing. But anyway, Raymond, I wanted to thank you for this today. It's been a pleasure.
Hey,
and
Tom,
a lot of great stories.
I hope you got something you can use. Yeah.
Yeah, we got a lot. I think a lot of people appreciate things you had to say.
Great.
All right. Thank you.
All right.
All right, Raymond.
See you, folks. Good luck to all of you drummers trying to make it.